rest. Might as well. I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page. But we still read that book, and we still run that race. Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Hey, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
I can't hear you.
It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, happy Tuesday, sir.
Happy Tuesday, partner, and happy Tuesday to everybody out there listening.
Mo, it finally happened. I think we spoke it into existence yesterday. The Dallas Cowboys finally got a deal done with CeeDee Lamb. It was breaking news shortly after we went off the air yesterday. Cowboys and all-pro wide receiver CeeDee Lamb reached an agreement to a record 4-year, $136 million deal that makes him the second highest non-paid quarterback in NFL history. The deal includes a $38 million signing bonus, which is the largest ever given to a wide receiver. So, Mo, the deal comes in just behind where we thought he was going to get. He is the second highest paid non-quarterback in the league, but, and this is something we're kind of seeing a little bit more with these deals. You saw with Tyreek's deal, he wasn't the highest paid receiver per year, but he got the most guaranteed money that any wide receiver had ever received. You look at CeeDee Lamb, and he isn't the highest paid wide receiver. He's close, but he got the biggest signing bonus that a wide receiver has ever received. So you're seeing this new little wrinkle when it comes to getting these deals done where, listen, we can't make you the highest paid. We're not going to reset the market, but we're going to get you close to it, and then we're going to give you this because this is the first time a receiver has ever gotten this, or this is the most a receiver has ever gotten here. And Mo, that seems to be enough for these receivers to sign on, whether it be the most guaranteed money, the biggest signing bonus, whatever it is. Because again, there's a lot of ego when it comes to these contracts. And if you're not going to make me the most paid, the highest paid, what are you going to do for me? So I can walk into the room and be like, oh yeah, well, you're the highest paid, but I got this and you ain't got this. Right. So that seems to be what it is.
I think that's where, if you want to call it, the receiver market is. No, we can't make you the highest paid, but you get the most guaranteed money. How about that? It really is interesting. We always call wide receivers the diva group. I feel like when they go to the bargaining table, CeeDee Lamb's like, I can't go in there in front of these guys and all you're giving me is I'll be the second highest paid. You got to give me something. I got to be able to show face. And how about the most guaranteed money? Okay. That's, now we're talking. Now I have something to say that all they can do is go, oh, look at this guy. Right, I'm the man for a minute till the next guy comes up. So yeah, my only thing about this is they got the deal done, but this could have been done so long ago. You got to wait till the last minute. And Chris, like you said, you alluded to yesterday, what kind of shape is he going to be in? How soon is he going to be able to be CeeDee Lamb, the all-pro receiver that you know him to be? Because he's not in football shape. And when you're not in football shape, you're at risk of injury. It doesn't have to be, and it could be a non-contact injury because you're not in football shape. So it's great they got the deal done, but you kind of hurt yourself because you don't know where he's at. And I'm assuming they're going to be expected, like, he'll be fine. He'll get a couple good workouts in, ready for game one, week one. Like, you only hope he can avoid injury.
We're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the regular season. And that was the biggest question after he signed the deal yesterday. Mike McCarthy addressed it right away. He said that they are going to start ramping up his program to get him ready for the start of the season. Mo, there are no more preseason games. There are no more two-a-days. There are no more joint workout practices with other teams right now. We're entering cuts. We are entering the week of roster cuts right now as teams are getting ready to trim down to their 53-man rosters. We're basically entering a bye week. We went through 3 weeks of preseason football. We had guys who had lingering injuries coming into camp. We had guys who got injured during camp. We had guys who got banged up a little bit during the preseason. And we're basically entering that 2-week, 13-day, 12-day period now where it's kind of trim down the rosters, get everyone set so we are all firing on all cylinders for week one, unless you're CeeDee Lamb. Now with CeeDee Lamb, it is ramp everything up, get everything going, got to be prepared for week one because I haven't been doing much the past 3-4 weeks because I've been sitting out. Another part of this was, again, whenever you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys and who they are signing and who they are not signing, you have to look at their general manager. Jerry Jones addressed the fans, asking him to step down as the general manager yesterday, Mo. He said, quote, "There's nobody that could effing come in here and be a better GM."
Says the rich guy that owns the team.
Isn't there a guy in their division that is a GM that is like
the best GM,
as the best GM in the league?
Yeah. You know what, Jerry? That's one of those I'd be like, show and prove. Not you would have to, it'd have to be like an offer that Howie Roseman couldn't refuse, and I doubt he would go there. But there are better GMs in professional football. There just are. When you hire a GM, it's about obviously putting together a talented roster. It's also to some degree about cost control, right? And what are the results of your GM? Have you won any titles or Super Bowls? I guess Jerry's still resting on what they did way back in '95. Because that would have been the last, not just Super Bowl win, but the last trip to the Super Bowl in general. I would say that over the last 30 years or so, he's been an effective owner for sure because their value has gone up extremely high. Look, they're a huge brand. Nobody argues that. I don't think he's a great GM. I think he's not that far from George Steinbrenner. I think his ego tells him he's a great GM, and it's easy for him to say nobody could do a better job because you're not going to let nobody get a chance to do a better job. Like my guess is Jerry Jones, if and when his time comes, he will be in the GM role the day he passes away. They will have to pull it away, and even then, he might still try to pull back and hold on to the job. I don't want to say he's a bad GM, but in the bigger picture, I think he's an okay GM. I don't think he's a great GM though. He's not unique. And if you look at those Super Bowls that they won, that wasn't really about him, the GM. That was about Jimmy Johnson being one of the greatest evaluators of talent in NFL history. You could say Jimmy Johnson might have been overrated as a coach, but as a talent evaluator, one of the best, if not the best. That wasn't Jerry Jones. Jimmy was like, we'll get those guys. And Jerry was like, yeah, we'll get those guys. He co-signed on that, but that had nothing to do with him being a great GM.
And you have to remember, Mo, that the 90s were different in the sense of you look at a Jerry Jones, you look at a George Steinbrenner, and the 90s were, if we can outspend you, we're better than you. That was the first qualifier. Can we outspend you? Because that's going to get the guys to the table. You look at how sports have evolved over the past 20 plus years, and money always matters, and money is always going to matter. But Mo, I could argue the last 10 years, money's part of it. Location is part of it. Family is part of it. Caliber of the team is part of it. Team dynamic, team structure. it's not just money anymore. And when it was just money, all you had to do was sell people on two things. If you were George Steinbrenner or Jerry Jones, one, you're going to get a lot of money, more than anyone else is going to give you, because I will outbid anyone if I want you bad enough. And two, you're going to be a Dallas Cowboy, or you're going to be a New York Yankee. And there was mystique to that, right? Because what was happening? Oh, Dallas was going to multiple Super Bowls in the 90s. The Yankees were going to multiple World Series in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And there was an aura to it. There was a mystique to it. But you look at where both of those franchises stand now, the Yankees haven't been to a World Series since 2009. Dallas Cowboys haven't been to a Super Bowl since the mid-90s. So are they still two of the most storied franchises in their sports? Absolutely. But is there a mystique to being a New York Yankee in 2024? Not really. Not unless you've been a Yankee fan your entire life and you personally have an attachment to the New York Yankees. Is there a mystique in the NFL to being a Dallas Cowboy? Not really. Not unless you grew up in Texas, or your parents were a Cowboy fan, or you were a Cowboy fan growing up. If that wasn't the case, Mo, you just want to be in the NFL. Now, are there a couple teams you probably don't want to be on in the NFL? Absolutely.
For sure.
Just like there's a couple teams in Major League Baseball you don't want to be on. You'd prefer to avoid if you could, because no one wants to go to a dumpster fire of an organization. But if you look across the NFL landscape, I would argue that Cowboy, Eagle, Ram, Bengal, Steeler, they all seem like pretty good stops to me. A Buffalo Bill, they have a great fan base up there. Like, you're going to all these different spots where, as long as you have a chance to contend for a playoff spot a few times in your career, you're not going to be angry off the bat.
Right.
So no, I don't think that it's not the same. It's not the same tools. And when it was just, I'm going to pay the most money and I'm going to show you the Dallas Cowboy way, Jerry was great.
He was
one of the best. But now there's finesse. Now there's nuance to it. Now there's logic to it. Because Dak should have been signed a year and a half ago. CD should have been signed 3 months ago. Jerry doesn't have finesse. Jerry doesn't have nuance. Jerry doesn't have logic half the damn time. So this is the issue that's been facing the Cowboys for the better part of the last 10 years. This is why they lose a bunch of people to free agency. This is why a lot of the people they do eventually re-sign, Mo, it takes like an awkwardly long amount of time to get the deal done. Because it is no longer here's what we're going to offer you, and you're going to take it because you want to be a Dallas Cowboy. It's not how that works anymore, Mo.
It is different. This is it. You're 100% right. It's a different time in football. You used to be able to be sold on the brand and on that star, and now, like you said, guys are like, yeah, love to be here, but what about that money thing? You know what I mean? Like I get it, I like it, and yes, we're going to be on TV a lot. I get it. I can build up my brand faster, but I need that money thing right. It is so much more different in today's sports. I was going to say NBA, but in all sports, you're right. It is about location. Money's right there all the time. You can sell me on, look what we've done together, and we want to continue this relationship. I do too, but the money thing, let's make that work so we can continue this relationship in a happy way. It is completely different. You brought up the Cowboys. I'm a Laker fan. Nobody can relate more than me that it used to be everybody wanted to go to the Lakers, or if you went to the Lakers, they had a chance to win something, and it's not like that anymore. Guys, the top free agents don't break their neck to get to the Lakers, and that didn't just start recently. That started when Kobe was still playing. Guys weren't like, yep, I'm a free agent. You know where I'm going? Like the Lakers would put on these big productions for free agents. Like actually have a Ron Howard come out and he did a whole thing where Carmelo was in a movie and starred him in it and put on this big production. And when it was all said and done, Carmelo walked. We couldn't even get LaMarcus Aldridge, but I digress. Look, if you're a Cowboys fan today, it's a good day for you because your best player, your playmaker offensively is back in the family. So you have to be feeling a lot better about week one going forward. But you still have to have questions about your team because your starting quarterback is still just twisting in the wind.
And a lot of people, and maybe rightfully so, if you're looking at Dak Prescott or Micah, who is the next one that should be signed? Who is the future? Well, if CD is your best offensive player, and I would argue, Mo, CD is a better wide receiver if you're ranking wide receivers than Dak is a quarterback if
No
you're
doubt.
ranking quarterbacks. CD is a top 3 wide receiver in this league. Dak Prescott's not a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Now, do I think he's far off? Not necessarily. I think he's in the top 10 discussion. I think I could easily take Dak as a 8th, 9th, or 10th best quarterback in the league.
Agreed.
But CD is not the 8th, 9th, or 10th best wide receiver in the league. He is easily the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, maybe at the worst case scenario, 4th best wide receiver in the league. So then you look at someone like Micah Parsons. Where does Micah stack up at his position in the league? I think he's closer to where CD stacks up than he is where Dak stacks up. And if that's the case, isn't Micah the next guy that should be signed? And if that's the case, Mo, then we come to the conversation of we know they can't sign all 3. So
Right.
if Micah's next, that means Dak's not coming back.
Facts. Look, I think you and the NFL Genius said this maybe a couple of weeks ago. If you know CD's the best player on offense, if you know Parsons the best player on defense, and they have to get signed, common sense tells us you can only sign 2 out of the 3. Who gets left out, right? At best, what could they do? Offer Dak a contract that they know he's going to turn down? You know what I mean? Like it. No one's saying it, but it looks like Dak Prescott, this is his last year in Dallas.
It's going to New York, baby. He is going to be a Jet. Aaron Rodgers, all line it up. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Cowboy for a couple of years.
You can just see it, huh?
I'm
gonna throw a wild card in there. If he's not a Jet, I can see him being a Raider.
I mean, they'll pay him, and they need a quarterback. They don't got one right now.
They don't. Right.
Mo, speaking of roster cuts and roster alignments, this came out yesterday as well. Important note as teams construct their initial 53-man rosters. NFL teams were informed yesterday by the NFL Players Association that they vetoed the revised emergency 3rd quarterback rule that would have allowed teams to elevate a bona fide quarterback from the practice squad to an unlimited number of games a season. So as a result, the rule is going to revert to the 2023 version, which says the emergency 3rd string quarterback must be on the 53-man roster. They cannot be an elevation. Now, this was, I know, guys, we're talking about the nuances of football here, but this is important. The way the rule worked out last season was that you were basically getting yourself a free roster spot while also having the security of having a 3rd quarterback available if catastrophe struck and you lost both of your starting quarterbacks in a game. There was a situation, there was a protocol in place for a 3rd string quarterback to come in and be able to take over the game and not be using one of the 53-man roster spots. Mo, that is no more. If you are going to roll with 3 quarterbacks on your roster, you have to have 3 of the 53-man spots for those quarterbacks. Not a huge deal early in the season, but when you start getting into playoff time, look at what happened to the San Francisco and Brock Purdy not that long ago. Look what happened if you're looking at a situation with the Browns, who went through 4 or 5 quarterbacks last year. The Steelers went through a handful of quarterbacks last year. It's when you get into situations like this that you want to have potentially a backup plan in place just in case. You don't want to be in the playoffs and be in a situation to win a playoff game. Your starter goes down, your backup gets hurt the next play, and now you're bringing in who? The kicker, the punter, the wide receiver, the guy that hasn't played quarterback since high school. He's going to come in now, and he's going to run the offense. You want to have someone who actually knows how to play the position available. But now, Mo, if you're going to do that, you got to pull depth from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I know, like you said, guys aren't like GMs are not gonna lose their mind going into the season, but they're going to at some point, like you said, especially on the offensive line. Offensive linemen drop like flies, and then before you know it, your depth is depleted. And if you take from there, how will that impact your team going forward? So I think it's like moving chess pieces, and some franchises are in better shape than others because some franchises have valued the backup quarterback. They have good backup quarterbacks. They're decent backup quarterbacks, functioning backup quarterbacks. But like you said, an injury is an injury. You have to have another guy to be the backup to the backup. So it's going to be interesting going forward. The decisions that teams have to make. I lived through the Purdy thing, and as soon as I saw Johnson go in the game, my head just sunk. And my wife was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Well, the game's over. Better luck next year." It happens. I think right now, when you look at how the teams are going into the NFL, they value offensive line depth, and maybe they're not going to worry about it as much, especially early into the season. But I have to wonder because I look at what happened to the Browns. I look at what happened to the Broncos and how depleted their offensive line was. It does matter. Look, you can have the most talented set of skill positions guys on your roster, wide receivers, tight end, running backs, the whole nine. If your offensive line can't hold up and do their jobs, it won't matter how great your skill position guys are. That's how important the offensive line is. I know they don't get as much shine, or usually every now and then we talk about the left tackle or the center. But if you don't have a capable offensive line, your offense is going to be average at best and probably not even average. Look at what the Jets were. Granted, I know Aaron Rodgers was hurt, but the offensive line, especially on the outside, they weren't very good. They weren't. I look at the Broncos' offensive line last year. They weren't very good. It does matter. It does impact your fortunes. So I do think it matters. I think Chris is having some technical difficulties. So with that said, I don't think we were going to talk. I thought we were going to go to JG and maybe do some MLB. But until we can get that righted, we can talk some NBA. Or we can talk some WNBA. I would like to know the thoughts of a lot of people out there when you're looking at the landscape of the WNBA and you're seeing how well this younger group that's coming in, this rookie group, this has been a terrific rookie group. And I think that's great because you have a lot of great veterans that maybe have a couple more years left in. So you left in their career. So you love to see the transition. I watched Diana Taurasi last night, still playing very good, but I'm excited going forward for the WNBA because I think there's going to be even more influx of talent coming the next offseason into the draft. At some point, we're going to see Juju. And I know I'm going to be excited to see her because she's got the complete package. I think people want Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to be the rivalry. I think it's going to be Caitlin Clark and Juju. That's going to be the rivalry. And that's going to be fun to watch because I think they both can score at all three levels. They both can break you down off the dribble. They both can facilitate. These are complete basketball players. I'm anticipating that kind of matchup for the WNBA. And that kind of matchup, they can springboard the brand even more with that kind of matchup, that kind of excitement. And I'm taking nothing away from Angel Reese. She's a terrific basketball player. But because she's more of an interior player, she's kind of limited in what she's going to do. Good rebounder. She's okay at finishing. But I don't want people to get offended when I say that Angel Reese isn't as skilled as Caitlin Clark. She's not. She's not as skilled. And it's not a bad thing, but she's very good at what she does. There is a separation between the two of them. Whether people want to believe it or not, there's a clear separation. Hey,
What's
what's up,
poppin',
Gene?
brother? I
Hey,
wanted to
what's going
stop in.
on?
I noticed that Chris was having some technical difficulties and didn't want Chev to talk to yourself. So I took a little break from work. That's why I'm in the work attire. Stop in and have some WNBA talk with you.
Yeah, I was just chattering. I was just
Bro, I
chattering.
love it. So can I give you like one perspective that really bothers me?
Sure.
You can enjoy Caitlin Clark and enjoy Angel Reese and not hate the other one, or like it almost feels like the presidential election where you can like you have to pick one side or the other. You don't have to do that in the WNBA. Like in the elections that's going on in the world, where you're like, oh well, I like Kamala, and the problem is Trump is this, or I like Trump, and the problem is Kamala is this. You don't
Right.
have to do that in the WNBA. You
I
can
agree.
just enjoy the fact that they're both great rookies. Like you can see, like, and I hate the people that are discrediting Angel Reese's rebounding. Well, they're all off her own offensive rebounds. Okay, take those all away. She still leads the league in offensive rebounds. She's still second in the league in rebounds. If you take away every one of her own offensive rebounds, she is still number 2 in the league in rebounding. She's number 1 with offensive and it's just embarrassing how in order to hype up your player, you have to discredit someone else. But I do agree with you that the rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Juju Watkins will be the next huge one in the WNBA.
Yeah, I'm excited for her. I think, and look, again, I'm with you 100%. I enjoy watching Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and I don't dislike one or the other. They're completely different players. One's a perimeter player, and one's more of a post player. They have two completely different skill sets. So I don't want to get people. I do think people try to make it if I don't say that Angel Reese is better, then I'm denigrating her. Or if I don't say that Caitlin Clark is the best player in the league, then I'm not giving her credit for what she is. I think at some point in her career she will be. She's not right now, but I enjoy watching both of them play. I enjoy the league, but Juju Watkins is going to be something special, and I do think it will be more of her versus Caitlin than Angel Reese.
I completely agree with you, but because they're both perimeter players. But the part that just I don't know, man. It's just that when you get real frustrated when you listen to people discredit other great players because they want to credit their own. With Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, you don't have to discredit either one of them. You can just enjoy good basketball. Angel Reese just went on a run where she had 3 straight games where she had 20 plus rebounds. It's never been done in a W ever. But like the comments, if you just click the comments section, it's like, well, how many were off her own misses? Shut up. Just enjoy it. Shut up.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
So in baseball, in your baseball, I know you love baseball. In baseball, they revere past greats. They talk about them in the way you should talk about your past greats. There's a reverence, there's a show of respect. In football, they do the same thing. How come in basketball, I feel like they don't revere their past legends the way they do in other sports? Like Wilt's the most overrated center of all time, or I don't understand. Or Oscar Robertson really wasn't that good. Who was he playing against? Or even Anthony Edwards' comments the other day, where they didn't really have any skilled players back in, so the only guy was Jordan. So of course he was going to look the way he did. Like, why do they feel like
Magic's response to that was so priceless? Did you see Magic's response to that?
I did.
I don't talk to people that don't have any championships.
Yeah. Boom. I love that.
I think that in basketball, a lot of players, and this is the truth, right? A lot of ex-players that left the league started podcasts. A lot of current players started podcasts, and you get a lot more sound bites as a comparatively speaking. Basketball is one of the only sports where you really like compare like eras and legends from different eras. Like you constantly hear the debate of Durant or Bird. You constantly hear the debate of LeBron or Michael or Magic and Steph. It's constant like one era versus another. Whereas in other sports, you kind of you look at if your name's not Cottrell, and I say that because he said what's up in the chat. You watch Jerry Rice play football, and you're like, that's the best receiver I ever play football. Nobody in their right mind is saying that Jerry Rice would just In 1988, Jerry Rice would come into the NFL now and be the greatest receiver in the NFL. No, things have changed. People are faster, stronger, lengthier. It is what it is, right? There's different schemes defensively.
Right.
But like in the era in which he played, where the ball was not thrown as much, he still put up video game numbers because that's how great he was. And I think that the greatness level that we talk about needs to be comparative to the era in which they played in, and not, well, there's no skilled basketball players like what Anthony Edwards said. That's stupid, right? There's obviously skilled basketball. The argument I would make is this, right? Think of it this way, right? Do you think the NBA now or the NBA in 1990 played more set offenses, played more plays, more like set, like literally? I think there was more scheme.
I think they're more set in the 90s.
Correct. In the 80s and 90s, I thought basketball was more schemed. I think today it's more of a one-on-one game. It's more of an open game. And a lot of people, and KD says it best, there's basketball players and there's hoopers. And I think the difference is there's a lot of hoopers in today's NBA, which creates very entertaining basketball. But you don't have to discredit a guy that really did great in the 90s and the 80s because he played as part of a system. It's the reason we all love college basketball. They're still playing 90s basketball.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's my frustration. Like I said, I don't see anybody ever denigrating Dan Marino or John Elway. Because they just respect how great they were. I don't see anybody like, well, Reggie Jackson wasn't that great, or Ricky Henderson, he was okay. Like, there's just a different respect level, and maybe it's because of what you said. Here we are in 2024. Everybody's got a podcast. Everybody's got an opinion, and I think more times than not, you got guys that are constantly looking for a hot take rather than really taking an informed opinion, and that's the frustration.
Well, I do it in baseball all the time, so I might be the one that does it in baseball. I say it all the time, and listen, nothing against Babe Ruth, but Babe Ruth played baseball and black people couldn't play baseball.
See, I'm not even a baseball guy, and I say that.
Like, but that's the truth, though. Like, I definitely, I don't want to say denigrate his records, but I don't treat them the same way because I don't think they're the same. I don't think one is in the same. And I think in basketball and baseball, it's totally different. In baseball, it's like, you know, we're comparing stats of an all-white league versus comparing stats versus a unified league, right? Like, I think that's why I do it in baseball. But you're right, though. Ricky Henderson in the 80s would not be compared to today's players. They would just admire and how great he was. I do remember a few years ago, and it's funny because I don't mean to say this disrespectful, but I know it's a baseball topic for a second. But I said a few years ago that Mike Trout has peaked. He's never going to be what Mike Trout was for the last 3 years. I said that 3 years ago. I was told I'm a moron. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, how could you say such a thing? Mike Trout's not the face of baseball. It's Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Yeah, he's not.
I agree.
The truth is, I don't think he'll ever be a face of an era of baseball because before or after him, his greatness was only for 5 years. It's the truth. And I don't mean to denigrate what Mike Trout did. So I'm doing exactly what you said, right? I'm comparing errors. But the truth when you break things down is I love when people have opinions. I love when people compare stuff. It creates a good conversation.
No, I don't mind the comparisons, but as long as it's an informed comparison, not just something that's just not just a blanket statement that, well, look at John Stockton. What would John Stockton be? A bench warmer? He's a plumber in today's league. I don't buy that. I don't know if he'd be a star, but I don't buy that.
Do you know what the laziest comparison is? They assume because they look at Larry Bird and they assume that he was slow and unathletic and he couldn't play defense. Like, whenever you hear people do the comparison game, they're like, yeah, well, who's Larry Bird going to stick? Why? Because he was white and a little lanky. You didn't think he was athletic? Right. Watch Larry Bird play basketball. In 1986, Larry Bird was the best player in the world, and there was no doubt about it. No questions asked.
That one is probably my favorite one because I'm always looking back and I'm going, wait a minute. So slow white guy, not particularly athletic, but very skilled, high basketball IQ. How would he do in today's league? I don't know. Luka's doing great. Joker's doing great. They're not athletic. They're not super athletes. They're incredibly skilled. They know how to play the game at a high level. You don't think? Look, not every
Bird wasn't slow though.
No, my point is not every guy's game could translate to today's game, but Larry Bird would absolutely kill in today's game. He would absolutely kill in today's game.
Do you think a guy that shot as pure as he did from 15 to 20 feet would not be better in an NBA game without hand checking? Like, come on. You're not watching, you know? And Larry Bird, people like say slow and unathletic. He was not slow and unathletic. Bro, go turn on an 86, 87 finals. By the way, you can see them. They're literally right on your TV. You just want to be uninformed. Go turn on one of those games and just watch that man play basketball. Magic Johnson was like poetry in motion in the fast break. Like, what are we talking about? People aren't skilled. Come on, Ant. It's a little silly conversation. Magic Johnson was poetry in motion in the fast break. You watch Ben Simmons in the fast break when he first came in the league, and you're like, wow, that's incredible. LeBron James, Magic did that before any of those guys did. He ran Showtime. It was incredible to watch. And I just feel like that the people that make those comments are just ignorantly watching basketball and not paying attention to what actually happened before.
And I think you're misinformed, right? It's
Correct.
It's okay to acknowledge how great today's players are. I think we constantly do that. I think we constantly give LeBron his flowers. We give Steph his flowers, Durant his flowers. I don't think that we don't appreciate the great players of this era. I know I do. I appreciate the young guys that are coming up. But I think that the old Pat Riley saying is too many times people get wrapped up in the sickness of right now, and they forget how great guys were that came before them. I don't doubt for one moment how great Larry Bird would be. Look, it's a different game, but the fact that you can play with the freedom of movement and motion and the spacing, not only would Larry Bird score the ball, I think Larry Bird would be at the top of the chart in assists as well. Like, we're talking about peak Larry Bird, the best version of Larry Bird, the best version of Larry Bird. We would be talking about him the same way we talk about Luka and Joker, right there at the top three, right? Because he can do everything they can do. And I think between the three of them, he was a bigger killer.
Appreciate you, David. You're right. And I think between the three of them, he was the most athletic. And I think between the three of them, he played the best defense. And I think between the three of them, I can't say he was the best passer because Jokic, Luka, they all could pass the basketball.
Yeah, it's tight.
But the point being is, it's just they're lazy comparisons from the uneducated that aren't watching. And listen, Cottrell said it perfectly. He said, yeah, what Ant said was dumb, but even he said he didn't watch. So how do you know?
Right. How do you give that opinion? Let me ask you a question. When we talk about the top wide receivers in football, what separates, or if there's any separation? Because I think they're both equally great, but my opinion, the difference between Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb is I think Justin Jefferson is more explosive. That's my opinion, but how do you rank them, and what do you think? Who do you think is the better player? Or do you think they're on the same level?
I think the difference between Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb is Justin Jefferson has a PhD in route running. He is what Steve Smith was to route running. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the next comparison to that as far as route running. The way Justin Jefferson comes out of breaks and the explosion that he comes out of breaks, he fools every corner. He can make you feel like he's going left. He goes right. You can watch him and study him on film, and he adjusts. I think that Justin Jefferson is a little bit less athletically skilled as CeeDee Lamb, but I think he is way more of a knowledgeable player of the game. Now with CeeDee Lamb, I think CeeDee Lamb is, as far as he's unbelievable. He has unbelievable hands. He has unbelievable positioning. I think he's actually the more athletic wide receiver, a little bit closer to what you see in Jamar Chase, but obviously not as strong. But when you're comparing wide receivers, think of errors, right? Antonio Brown and Julio Jones. Julio was the physical specimen.
Mhm.
What Antonio did was he broke you by his route running and the way he could get in and out of movements and the way his shifts were. And I think that what Justin Jefferson is he's a guy that perfected his craft. And what CeeDee Lamb is, he's got so much God-given ability. He is absolutely incredible being able to, his fluidity, his athleticism. I think that CeeDee Lamb will always be that for, I don't know, for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know who's better, right? I think when you're asking who's better, you look at it in a sense of who would you rather have for your quarterback?
Yeah, and it's hard to just say who's out and out better. There are guys that we don't talk about as much. The young man that plays for the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love that kid. I think that kid is a beast. There's no shortage of talented wide receivers. I think you're right. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the kind of route runner his pops was. Just a master at his craft. So, yeah, I enjoy watching all of them. It's funny because they got the CeeDee Lamb deal done, and the first thing that came to my head was, when is Aiyuk going to get signed? When are we going to get this done? Because we're getting to the silly season now, and I have to believe that he and his representatives, they can't seriously think he's going to get CeeDee Lamb money.
No, but I think the issue is every wide receiver that gets signed, the price tag on Aiyuk gets higher. And I'm not saying that he thinks he'll get CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson money, but I think in his head, if CeeDee's worth 38 a year, why am I not worth 30? And
That's
I think
fair.
The 49ers in their head are saying that, AJ Brown got 27 a year. Why can't, you're not better than AJ Brown? So I think that the comparative narrative in which each one of these receivers are getting paid is being able to look at what their comparison is. And when you get in a meeting with a receiver who's got the biggest ego in the entire world and talk to him about contracts and talk to him about comparatively, you're not as good as CeeDee Lamb or you're not as good as Justin Jefferson, it creates this, I could be as good as them if I was on a different team with a different quarterback that focused or showcased me. They don't want to admit that it's the same thing with any aspect of life. People don't want to admit when people are better than them at something.
I got you. So let me ask you this. Aiyuk's mindset is probably thinking, everywhere I go, I could be the number one guy, right? If I go to Pittsburgh, I'm going to put up 1,400 yard seasons there. I'm sure that's his thinking. Look, I think he's a good football player. I've said nothing but that. I've even said he's the best receiver on the team. That's not the same as saying he's the best player, but he's the best receiver on the team. I don't think he's the kind of wide receiver, though, wherever you put him, he's going to put up 1,500 yard seasons. There's some really good players, and then there are special players that no matter where they go, even if they have quarterbacks who are average or subpar, they kind of go get it. They kind of still put up numbers. Like Larry Fitzgerald was a monster before and after Kurt Warner. That Larry Fitzgerald was just a dude. He just went and got it. I don't think CeeDee Lamb is that kind of guy. I think not CeeDee Lamb. I'm sorry, Brandon Aiyuk. I think Brandon Aiyuk is a good football player, but he's a good football player in a scheme that sets him up for success.
Here's the thing that bothers me is every guy that you just mentioned and every guy that's gotten paid has had multiple seasons in which they were the dude. Brandon Aiyuk has had one season in which he was the guy, right? 2 years ago, he barely cracked 1,000 yards. Look, if we did a blind resume of Brandon Aiyuk and Devonta Smith, I think you would be shocked at how comparative their stats are, right? Devonta Smith has had 2 1,000-yard seasons, one 1,200-yard season, one close to 1,100-yard season, 7 touchdowns in both seasons. Brandon Aiyuk has had a 1,300-yard season and a 1,000-yard season, so 2,300 in 2 years versus 2,200 in 2 years, 7 touchdowns and 8 touchdowns. When you look at Devonta Smith's contract versus Brandon Aiyuk, what are we doing right now? How look, we can look at it and say we can think Brandon Ayuk might be better than Devontae Smith, but the argument for Devontae Smith is there. Now, if I comparatively the Brandon Ayuk to Tyreek Hill, you would laugh. Tyreek Hill's had back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons. He's got 3,400 yards in the last 2 years, and he made $30 million a year doing that. You're not giving that production. So what are we doing? You're not that guy. So I think that Brandon Ayuk is a lot closer to Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, that tier of receivers than he is to CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, just the elite dogs. So, I think he's overvaluing himself.
Let me ask you this. You brought up Devontae Smith. Maybe it's just me. You don't think Devontae Smith can go to another level? Because I think there's more. What you've seen from him, I think there's more there. I think Devontae Smith can be a Pro Bowler in his own outright. I know that he plays with A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown's a monster, but I think Devontae Smith, I don't think he's reached his peak. I think there's more there.
So
you're an Eagles fan, and you would know more than me.
I agree with you. I think his size really hampers him, and a lot of teams will not give him the there's what's the comparison? Who is a smaller receiver of that stature that you've seen that good for that long? Is it Marvin Harrison? And I don't think we're that. So, the best case scenario you can look at for Devontae Smith is a better route running Deshaun Jackson. I think he's good, right? I think he's very good, and I think he can be elite in the league. But, here's what you got to really understand. When we talk about Ayuk, Devontae Smith's average salary per year, just signed an extension, starts this year, $25 million a year. A.J. Brown also signed an extension, started this year, $32 million a year. Brandon Ayuk has to look at those two contracts and say, okay, they're going to value me more than Devontae Smith because I'm the number one, but I'm not valued as much as A.J. Brown,
right,
and has to accept something between $26 and $29 million a year. Now, because the Patriots were willing to overpay you because no one else is on the roster, you can't say, oh, the Patriots were willing to give me $32 million. Well, yeah, there's nobody there. The Jaguars overpaid a slot receiver in Christian Kirk because no one wanted to go to Jacksonville. You're in a San Francisco 49ers offense that features George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. You have the best left tackle in football. You have one of the best offensive minds in football. You're not walking into a better scenario. Going to New England, going to Cleveland, going to Pittsburgh, going to Washington. I just think it's silly, and I'm shocked that something hasn't come to fruition with Brandon Ayuk.
I am too. I think we had you on a couple of weeks back, and I was right where you were when you said I wouldn't be surprised if the deal gets done and he'd be gone, because they were at an impasse. They weren't going to. He has to be asking for money that's at least in the A.J. Brown range, and that's insanity. And he's not going to get that. I'm not saying he won't get it from somebody else, but he's not going to get it from San Francisco. They don't value him that way. They just don't. Not that he's not a good football player, but like you said, you're not. You're a dude. You're a good football player, but you're not a franchise football player. I just saw somebody say Alvin Harper. That's not bad. That's not bad.
No, but if he is the modern day Alvin Harper in Tampa Bay, it's not like that's a terrible thing. It's funny if we talk about old receivers. When I watch Brandon Ayuk, who I see more than anyone is Chris Chambers. You remember Chris Chambers from Miami Dolphins?
I remember big Chris Chambers.
He reminds me of Chris Chambers so much, like the way he plays football. I don't look at him as an elite receiver, though. I am of the fruition that he is not a top 10 wide receiver in football. I think there's a lot of guys that are better than him that, look, I don't care how this sounds. You give me last year's nuke. I'll take last year's nuke on the 49ers over Brandon Ayuk. Last year's DeAndre Hopkins. He's still a great receiver. And I'm not saying that I would take DeAndre Hopkins over him now, but if I watch those two guys play football, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that Brandon Ayuk is better than DeAndre Hopkins.
Even at this stage in his career, D-Hop in that system, I think he might still put up some numbers. He might do well.
That's my point. He was in a system in Tennessee with Will Levis. He was in a system. Yo, I'll tell you right now, the biggest crime in football is what happened to DeAndre Hopkins throughout his career. Think about where he played in with who. How many years of his career were wasted playing with Ryan Mallett, Brock Osweiler. Like, he had a couple years of Deshaun. He had a couple years of rookie Kyler, Will Levis. There's so many. Matt Stump the Schaub.
That's a good one too. I got you.
Think about all the bad quarterbacks he's played with.
He's at a lot of them when you really get down to it. That's crazy. And he's going to finish his career, at least he's going to be this season or two with Will Levis. Let me circle back to the Cowboys.
Yes,
you
sir.
said this a long time ago. You just broke it down with common sense. Your best offensive player is CeeDee Lamb. Got to pay him. Your best defensive player is Micah Parsons. Got to pay him. You can't pay all three. Common sense says that this is Dak Prescott's last year. You said this weeks ago, maybe even further back. And I wonder why so many people think I wonder what they're going to do with Dak. If they're going to pay Micah Parsons, you already know what they're doing with Dak.
I think that this is a year in which Dak Prescott has to go out there and earn a contract. See, this is what the Cowboys could do. This is really slick. They could sit back and watch this football season. And if Dak Prescott goes out there and takes them to the postseason success they want to have, NFC Championship game, Super Bowl appearance, they can franchise him and try it again. Whereas with Micah, you have to lock him up long-term because every day that Micah Parsons plays football, his price ticket goes up. Because the price of edge rushers in the NFL, it just keeps going up. It's just like wide receivers. It's going up. Dak is one of those guys where, I could take that $55 million and invest it in multiple positions. I can get a couple guys. I can go year for year with quarterback. I don't have to pay him because on a scale of value, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott, one of these things just ain't like the other. Just the truth.
Speaking of quarterbacks, I don't know if you saw the preseason game in which Trey Lance basically played the whole game. I don't break down games nowhere near the way you do, so I want your honest opinion of what you saw, what he may have done good, and what I didn't see.
So it's not about what you didn't see, or it's just one of those things with, like, when you look at Trey Lance, right? He threw 5 interceptions in that game. And I guarantee you what ended up happening was they were like, look, let it fly. I don't care what the situation is. Like, I want to see you make the big time throws. Try to fit the ball A, B, and C. I think Trey Lance just did himself a disservice by playing in that game because it looked to me as if the Cowboys were like, I don't care what the scenario is. Go out there and show me what you have. And they let him throw the ball 50 times in a preseason games. He threw 5 interceptions, and he did it with backup the best offensive player they threw on the field with him was backup tight end Luke Schoonmaker, and he only played for the first half. I don't know, man. Like, I still am not ready to close the book on Trey Lance, but that was not the performance in which you wanted to see from Trey Lance. Just wasn't. Throwing 5 interceptions to third-string defenders on the Chargers is just not what you want to see. Are we fair there?
No. I'm with you because while I watched the game, I was thinking, even though we know the Chargers are going to be much defensively, like I thought, who are these guys out here in the field that he's playing against right now and he's struggling? And I'm glad you said what you said because I was wondering, I was like, he is just forcing balls down the field. And is this him auditioning for his Dallas Cowboy life? Or, you know what I mean? For them to say, show us a reason to keep you? Or is it that we're going to keep you, but we need to know if you're the second string quarterback or you're the third string quarterback?
I actually think he gets cut today.
Fair enough.
I do. I really believe he gets cut today. Cut down days today by 4 p.m. I think Trey Lance gets cut. And we talk about the 5 interceptions. We don't talk about the 2 fumbles he had. He lost one of them. He had 6 turnovers versus a third string defense. This is your opportunity to shine, man. You had 6 turnovers. Now, granted, I don't think the offensive line did a great job. I don't think the receivers did a great job. Fine. But you watch quarterbacks go in versus third string defenses and vanilla defense play calls and have field days. They go in there and they're like, oh, why are we not keeping Sam Bradford? Why is Ryan Mallett not a Hall of Fame quarterback? Like, you see these guys in these preseason performances and you're like, this is incredible. And you realize they're playing against vanilla defenses, third stringers, backups. They're not showing you anything. And this guy still went out there and managed to have 6 turnovers. 6. That's terrible.
That was insane.
And this is funny because Dak was on the sidelines laughing at Lance after the game and said, like, thanks for getting me paid. Because that's factual. I'll be the first one to admit it. I said the Cowboys can move on from Dak Prescott, see what we have in Trey Lance. Because I'm not ready to close the book on Trey Lance. Yeah, they can't do that now. There's no way they can do that now after that preseason game, because any Cowboy fan that watched that game is just going to go, yeah, let's give Dak $60 million. We don't want that.
Right.
We don't want that.
Agreed. Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
I know how you feel about the Jets. And I know at some point you and the Wire to Wire guys are going to make your predictions. I don't want you to do any spoilers or nothing like that.
You're good.
Do you think, because a lot of people question their tackles, right? That a lot of people are going to say the Jets season will hinge on what those tackles do or don't do for Aaron Rodgers, right? I actually kind of think that Aaron Rodgers is more mobile than people give him credit for. They act like suddenly Aaron Rodgers became Peyton Manning physically. I get he's 40 years old, but I'm sure Aaron can still move and extend plays. But I guess what I'm asking you is, are you just as bullish on the Jets in the bigger picture in the AFC?
I'll tell you right now, I don't know how you can question their tackles anymore. They brought in Morgan Moses from the Baltimore Ravens. They drafted Olu Fashanu in the first round from Penn State, and they got Tyron Smith from the Cowboys. So Tyron Smith can't stay healthy. So let me tell you what the Jets did, right? They signed – I thought they were going to make Olu Fashanu their starting right tackle. No, they did not do that. They brought in Morgan Moses. And then they signed Tyron Smith, and they're like, all right, well, what happens if Tyron Smith gets hurt? Oh, wait, we have this first rounder that has incredible talent that's going to back up Tyron Smith. Joe Douglas did an incredible job there for the New York Jets as far as protecting Aaron Rodgers. They have Elijah Vera Tucker, former first-round guard. Their offensive line has been solidified, in my opinion. Now, where you're going to see a little bit of issues is the center left guard scenario is just not great. But if your tackles are taking care of you and you can use your center and left guard to double team the interior, I don't know, man. I think the Jets will be fine offensively. I remember a game where the Packers played against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football, and they were missing 3 offensive linemen. And Aaron Rodgers had a scheme, and the Eagles defense was just like, we're going to get after the quarterback. It was in Lincoln Financial Field. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I think that was the year, they led the league in sacks. They were just incredible, like sacking the quarterback. And it was like 3-step drop, screen pass, 3-step drop, slants, 3-step drop. And then, he would wear out your defensive lineman by running a quick offense. Bang, 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 bang. If you don't think Aaron Rodgers understands what the defense is doing, throw on some tape. He's probably the most intelligent quarterback at reading defenses I've ever seen. Like, he could tell you what everyone's doing. It's incredible. I think the Jets are great this year. If you can guarantee me Aaron Rodgers' health, because I don't know at 40 years old if those muscles and those bones and those ligaments can hold up. You can guarantee me his health, they're going to Super Bowl.
And to that point, he didn't have to be MVP, Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? Like, I expect him to play at a high level, but when you have somebody as gifted as Breece Hall, who's probably a 1,400 yard back, are they going to probably be more of a balanced offense instead of an Aaron Rodgers centric offense?
I mean, Breece Hall also catches the ball out of the backfield.
Right.
I think they'll be very balanced. And I think that Aaron Rodgers will look at the defense and say, okay, 6-man box, we're running the football. 7-man box, okay, we could pass or we can run. 8-man box, we're throwing the football. and you have an intelligent enough quarterback to know what he's looking at defensively, you have a talented enough running back to know that if they have a 6-man box, we're going to hand the ball off to Breece Hall. Breece Hall's seen nothing but 8-man boxes last year. If you played the Jets last year and you didn't have 8 men in a box, I don't know what the hell you were doing.
Facts.
You had to make Zach Wilson beat you with his arm. They were playing within 15. I've never seen anything like this. All 11 guys would play within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. You know how odd that is? Every team plays cover 1. Every team plays cover 2. And these guys are 20 yards back in the secondary to protect the over the top. They literally just there was a snap where every single defender from the Buffalo Bills was within 11 yards of the line of scrimmage. I don't even know how it's possible. I don't know how a quarterback could look at that and not say, all right, let's run all verticals, and I'm going to throw a ball to someone that wins. Because it's embarrassing how bad the quarterback play was.
No, look, I'm already been sold on their defense. And if their offense is going to be balanced, then they're the clear favorites, I would say, to be the biggest threat to the Chiefs, in my opinion. Look at this. The time is up. NFL Genius comes in here, does his thing, helps out Coffee and Sports because we had a little technical difficulty. That's what you do on the Wire to Wire Network. We got it like that.
I appreciate everybody tuning in. Obviously, great stuff all going on the Wire to Wire Network. Meaty Boys, WWE, our wrestling podcast tonight. You got Wire to Wire, Coffee and Sports tomorrow. Thursday night, you got Pregame and Pigskin, Birds Deep, Coffee and Sports. Like, we're loaded. And if college football is your fix, Saturday morning, coast to coast, having a great time over here, working with some incredible podcasters and great minds. So, Mo, close us out.
We appreciate you guys for joining us this morning. Make sure you check out all the great content we have on Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys. See you.